boy.
Girl, okay.
Oh, Lord.
Good
We'd like, to
morning.
welcome you, we'd like to welcome you to the Be More News Morning Show. My name's Donnie Glover, publisher of Be More News, and we're with the one and only Marcia Juice. Good morning, Marcia.
Good morning, Donnie. How are you this morning?
Exuberantly wonderful. Kavette, how are you?
I'm fabulous. It's Friday.
Thank God it's Friday.
Let me just congratulate you both. This is the end of our first 6 weeks of programming, and I just want to commend you for your consistency, your diligence, and an excellent effort in terms of bringing forth the news relating to Black America, including the unfortunate insurrection on Wednesday. Marcia, have you recovered?
No.
Kavette, have you recovered? You're closer to the Capitol.
Remember what? They did it again yesterday. They did it again. They went in there again yesterday. So there's no, we ain't in recovery stage yet. We haven't gotten there.
They went in there yesterday.
From what I understand, a police officer was shot at the Capitol yesterday.
Marcia, did you catch this news?
No, I didn't. I'd heard Donald Trump on the air talking about how sorry he was and he wanted everybody to settle down. But I didn't hear any of that. But anyway.
Well, he's a seditionist. Well, anyway, Marcia, we wanted to take the first moment, the first part of the show, and speak about BEYA, Black Engineer of the Year Awards. This is the 35th year. Kudos to Dr. Tyrone, Taybourne, Morgan State University engineer. I'll never forget the day he was recognized with his honorary doctorate. Tell us about BEYA and tell us about today's guest, Marcia.
Yes, I'm very excited. This is Ray Don Kennedy, and we call him Ray. He is the managing editor of the Black Engineer and Information Technology magazine, Hispanic Engineer and Information Technology magazine, and all of the publications that are at all of the conferences that Career Communications produces. And he is just amazing. He achieves their business goals by leading the editorial content planning, managing an editorial staff, and collaborating cross-departmentally to market and increase the company's publications, digital footprint, and overall readership. In addition, he's also the producer of the CCG's latest series, High Tech Sunday. And that weekly program initiates conversations at the intersection of technology and culture through a lens informed by spiritual philosophies. He has a bachelor's in psychology from Ball State University. Go Indiana! Oh, okay. And where he excelled in both the classroom and football field as a Division I full scholarship student. He is really smart. I love this man. And in 2020, he joined his 2008 team in being inducted into the Ball State University Hall of Fame and was honored for his dedication and commitment to teamwork. So we're really proud of
you.
him.
Tell us he was a baller. You a baller?
A former baller at this point. My body is too broken to try to still get out there and do that.
I know the feeling.
Right. So
I got out there with some young boys at the YMCA. I don't know what I was thinking. The ball was right there, Ray. I went to grab it. I had the ball in my mind. In my mind, I had the ball. And my body said, whoa, homie. Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your imagination and reality are two different things.
Oh my God. In actuality, I was moving slow.
It's the former athlete mentality. Your mind still think you can do it. Your mind's still fast. The body's like, nope, can't do that. Not no more.
Right. And so I think this is really a good segue because, you know, you went from being this big baller and Hall of Famer and you decided to go into journalism. So what was it that created that interest in you?
So, not going to lie, journalism was not on my radar, coming out of college, obviously, because I took the path of psychology. I love trying to figure out, what goes on in people's minds. and having that background kind of gives you
the president. Why does he think that way?
I can't crack that code. But it does give you a lot of patience. It gives you a lot of outlook. It gives you empathy more than anything, and so that's great for working in with when you're working with people, and that's what we do here at BEYA. But going back, how I got into journalism, as Marcia said in the intro, I played ball. I played football for Ball State for 5 years. And that doesn't really lend a lot to internships and kind of getting work experience, because usually when most students are doing their internships, the football team is practicing in the summertime, lifting, kind of getting ready. So I didn't have that experience, and I had a connection to Dr. Tyrone Taybourne. And so when I graduated, and I knew that when I took psychology, I started out thinking I was going into counseling, right? And that, as I got further along, I realized I didn't want to do that, because when you're a therapist, you take on everybody's problem, and you can't really, with confidentiality, release that. And so that was something I didn't want to internalize, but I still wanted to work with people. I still wanted to get in the working world. So I reached out to Dr. T and asked them if I could come internship, just to kind of get my feet into the working world, as I figured out what I wanted to do with this psych degree, this psych background. And through that process, that summer that I interned, I learned the system, and Dr. T mentored me and taught me the ropes. And by the end, he asked me if I wanted to come on full time. And so that was 2012. So over the last 8 years, I've been kind of formed and kind of, elevated to the managing editor, where now I manage all the publications and editorial releases that come out of the company. So it was just really a kind of a labor of love, and the mission that we have here at CTG is really the key. Helping the community, helping STEM, Black STEM professionals, women, minorities. That's really what kind of brought me and kept me here, because I love telling these stories. I love learning, about all these people and interacting, touching, rubbing elbows. Obviously. Metaphorically, not now because we're in a pandemic, but that's been a journey so far, and it's been a great learning experience. I've grown up here from an intern to where I am now, and it's just been a great journey so far.
Ray, where do you think Black people will be in the realm of technology moving forward? Do you see us like Wakanda? Do you see us in driving exploration of space? Where do you see the Black person? Will we be written off the island? Will we discover our own planet? Will we fix this planet? I know.
So no. So I'm a huge superhero buff. So when you said Wakanda, man, my eyes lit up, because that is, and although it's comic book and fantasy, but I don't think it's that far from the future. For those of you who don't know, Wakanda is a fictional country in the Marvel universe, but it's an African kingdom that's the forefront of technology in the world. And obviously, if you've seen Black Panther, the movie, you'll understand, I guess, where that's going. But I don't think that's far. I mean, we are one of the most creative people on the planet, and there's been a lot of strides. We're definitely not there, but we are definitely moving forward and kind of leading creativity, innovation in this world. And some of the people that I've been able to come across, we're heading in the right direction. So yeah, I see us flying to the moon, flying to Saturn, and discovering new
with style. If we're going to be there, we're talking about Afro. I was really checking.
Oh, definitely.
I was checking out the clothes. They some slick clothes.
Oh, it's smooth. They smooth.
Tell us about Dr. Tyrone Taybourne's vision. Have you ever met a person like him before?
Not at all. Not at all. Dr. T has been ahead of the game for as long as I've known him. And a good example of that is basically what we're doing with BEYA right now. Obviously because of the pandemic, we've had to go from being live, in DC with the BEYA conference, to going to a digital format, or as Dr. T likes to call it, a digital twin. And, just to kind of show his foresight, BEYA has been digital for a long time. We've had live components. We've been going online for a while. So when sorry guys, I'm getting feedback. I'm not sure if that's me. So when we had to pivot and kind of go all digital and kind of turn the BEYA conference into a digital twin And when I say digital twin, I don't mean a virtual conference, because a digital twin is saying that we're trying to take what we did live and make it digital, and that's different than virtual or replaying recorded videos and kind of just throwing it back out there. Everything we're trying to do is trying to be live. We're trying to get that audience engagement and make you feel like you're still a part of that BEYA community, that BEYA energy, that BEYA environment, and kind of bringing that back to you. So this is going to still be a good experience. For example, one of the things that we're doing with the BEYA STEM conference this year is we have all these different villages, right? And so you'll have your main lobby, and then they kind of branch off into different sections like the HBCU village. And so one of the cool things we're doing this year is the BEYA HBCU homecoming. And that is going to be an opportunity for HBCU alumni to come in and kind of get together and kind of have that reunion. There's going to be games, there's going to be contests, there's prizes, scholarship money that we have planned. It's going to be really fun, and I can't wait to see how that turns out.
That's exciting. What about the K through 12 village?
The K through 12, it's the same thing.
That's
so
huge.
it's going to be an exhibit fair where company STEM organizations are signing up that can share information. So if you have any youngsters, K through 12, anybody that's interested in STEM careers, we're gonna have a lineup of organizations that are going to share content, share videos, share information that can help those young people kind of find their way, find their place, or at least be introduced to STEM careers and kind of see what's available and what's out there to kind of get them going on that path to STEM careers.
Mm-hmm. So when we sit down and we look at how you transition from the career fair, are you still having that capability through this process? Are people still going to be able to look for jobs?
Absolutely, and so that's another part of that's another village of the BEYA. So they definitely, and like I said, it's going to be like a digital twin. So if you were there in person, you would go to these exhibit booths, you would interview, you would talk to the people. It's going to be the same way with our exhibit booths. You have the opportunity to go to companies who are looking to hire, and especially in this pandemic, that is critical right now, especially for students who are looking, for their next step when they graduate. But there will be live representatives from companies. You can still interview, you can still go up to the booth, just like it's only thing that's being saved is your feet. You don't have to be on your feet walking around. You can sit down and do it and basically have an interview like what we're doing right here.
Mm-hmm. Ray, I saw your face light up when you mentioned the HBCUs and the involvement of HBCUs. Now, Ball State is not an HBCU, but you still have this enthusiasm.
Yes, sir. So Ball State offered me a full ride scholarship, and that's kind of hard to turn down when you talk about. But I would have loved to have gone to an HBCU, and I love working with the HBCUs now in my current job. But HBCU, it's an energy that you can't get anywhere else. Like it's the culture, it's love, it's family, and yeah, I love working with them. I love HBCUs. Yeah.
So here's my question: and Marsha, this might be biased, but hey, is there an HBCU that really can't wait to get to BEYA? Is there an HBCU that Marsha?
All of them.
I was gonna say all of them are coming.
All of them. All of them come. They all show up and bring their kids. They bring their people.
Well, I know, like in basketball and football, the North Carolina A&T Aggies, when they come, they bring the goldfish, the dog, the neighbors, the fish, the fishing rod. They bring it all. I'm saying, who takes over BEYA?
Well, you've got the historically Black college universities, engineering deans are all there. You have representation, their presidents show up. So there's so many different events and so many different levels. You have so many different levels of people from those universities to participate, and they send their children.
Okay.
What?
You sound like a politician.
No, I'm telling you. What else you want to know? They show up and they show up and they show out.
Does Morgan State University take it over?
No,
So here's the cool thing, Donnie. That I think to answer your question, I think you asking who's going to be the livest, who's going to be the livest HBCU to show up, and so the answer to that question is yet to be determined. So when I talked about those HBCU villages, there's contests, and so you can come in if you're a Morgan State alumni. There's going to be a Morgan State team. So when we're introducing gamification, and so you can go and join your HBCU. There'll be quizzes, there'll be games, and what you and the points that you get tally towards your school. And so if you want your school to be top, if you trying to be the livest HBCU, you got to show up and you got to show out for your school. And then we'll find out by the end of BEYA who came to play.
That's
And
a
so
game.
that's gonna be
That's a game changer.
Exactly.
That's a game. So how do people now? All of these that you're talking about are really public, right?
Yes.
Public events. How do they get in touch with registering? What do they need to do to participate? Even if it's online, they've got to do something. Can you help us navigate that?
Absolutely, and it's going to be really simple. It's www.beya.org, and you go to that
right
page.
This one right here.
Right there. BEYA.org, and right now registration is open. You can go there and you can get all the information that's on that page. I could probably be here all day if I want to run it all the way down. But if you go BEYA.org, www.beya.org, and you can get all the information there.
Ray, when you look at this conference and what technology means to the Black community, one thing that we left out, and it's very near and dear to Marsha, is the role of women. Do we have any women astronauts this year, or any women scientists? I guess maybe, COVID, wasn't it a Black woman that developed a vaccine for COVID? Where's the Black woman this year, so that I don't get pimp slapped backstage by Marsha?
So I'm trying to remember. So that women definitely have a place at BEYA. Everybody has a place at BEYA. Yeah. I'm trying to remember my winners list because there's a lot of great women there. I work with a lot of the winners in their profiles for the magazine, and so right now my mind is kind of flooding right now with all the names. But Demetria Hall from Lockheed Martin is a phenomenal woman. She actually is a double awardee because she also won an award at Women of Color. Yeah. And so she won Women of Color, and now she's here at BEYA.
What stands out about her?
Well,
and I'm the father of a 19-year-old daughter. I always, she's science and technology, she's STEM. I'm always looking. Marsha's always sharing stories that I have to pass on to her, because believe it or not, I try to be a good dad.
Yeah. And so I don't want to misquote, because I don't want to. I want to make sure I'm not confusing her profile with anybody. But I do know I have talked with her personally, and she's just a great role model. She's a great example of the winners, a great example of the BEYA culture and the BEYA energy that we want, as well as women of color. I would definitely look her up. Look out for her profile in the magazine that's going to be coming out for the BEYA issue, and that can be found. Once it's published.
Subscribe.
Oh, subscribe. So yeah, definitely. Subscribe. You can subscribe.
Subscribe.
Let me tell you how you can subscribe to the magazines and find the magazines. And you can go to www.blackengineer.com. So there's three magazines that we work with. The BEYA magazine is USBlackEngineer.com. US Black Engineer and Information Technology magazine, and you can get that at blackengineer.com. We also have Hispanic Engineer magazine, and that's hispanicengineer.com. And then we also have our Women of Color magazine, which is womenofcolor.online. I know that sounds weird because it's not one of the normal endings, but it is womenofcolor.online. And I promise you that'll get you there. And you can subscribe to all of our magazines by visiting those sites.
And then they can make a choice that if they want it in a hard copy, or if they want to get it online, or how does that work?
Yeah. So when you subscribe, it'll be hard copy, but we also have options for digital formats as well.
And I think that's really important. Those particular publications. And when we sit down and we look at the different audiences for the three of them, why was it important to be able to have three separate publications?
Well, all three magazines they're different personalities, if you will, and I feel like right now they're like my kids at this point. But U.S. Black Engineer is definitely our oldest publication. Dr. Tyrone Taybourne started this magazine when he was in college at Cornell. And actually, fun fact or trivia fact, when we say U.S. Black Engineer, the U.S. actually doesn't stand for United States. It stands for Umoja Sasa, which is Swahili for Unity Now. And so that's
I'm 35 years in, and hold on. What you just say?
Right.
That's right. That's the Quantum 365 right there.
Yeah, so the U.S. stands for Umoja Sasa, which is Swahili for Unity Now, and so that was the name of the publication that Tyrone was leading when he was at Cornell, and kind of evolved that into U.S. Black Engineer.
He's a radical.
He's insane. He's insane.
Wow. I didn't know he started a revolution.
Ahead of his time, way ahead of his time.
Way ahead.
Way ahead of his time, and a visionary, a real visionary.
Yep.
That's
how.
Yep.
Abara Gandhi.
Okay. Time out. Let's go back to the. But yeah, so that's the flagship of everything. That's the flagship of BEYA. That's the flagship of Career Communications Group. And that's basically an intellectual publication, and the stories we try to tell there, covers professional achievement, professional training, creativity, innovation. Then we also have Hispanic Engineer, which is basically our college magazine. We have stories in there, tips for students. We try to highlight mentors, good role models for those students, life skills, tips, study tips, study habits, anything. If you're a college student and pick that up, it's a roadmap to success. Everything in there is positive. That can help you get to the finish line. Words of encouragement. Even just like cool, fun things. Fun ways to spend your leisure time. Like anything. What that you want to know as a college student, we put in there. With all these magazines, even if you have ideas or thoughts, if you go to those websites that I mentioned earlier, you can submit story ideas, because we're always looking for that. So, as I get older and slowly start breaking away from like that college environment, what I was doing in college in 2007 to 2012 is not what the young people are doing now. And I'm really starting to feel a little old. I'm only 31 years old. But we always want to know, and we always try to keep our posts. So if you have thoughts on any of those, for any of our books that I mentioned, you can always submit a story idea on our publication websites. And then last but not least is our Women of Color magazine. And that's our third magazine. That's our youngest book, but it's probably the most powerful, or one of the most powerful books that we have. And that's basically a professional women's lifestyle magazine. And in those pages, we try to spotlight the achievements of some of the amazing women around the world, globally. We've had articles on women who are innovating in Africa, establishing electric grids and building water reserves. And there's a lot of cool stories that we're able to tell, inspirational stories, work-life balance, women's health topics. There's just a lot that you can gain from that book as a professional woman. So tell us one more time. I know that you have a ton of stuff you have to do, and we're so grateful for your time, because I know you're on deadline at this time of the year. It's crazy, right?
It's the fast track at this point.
I know. But give us that information so people can register and information to get the publication.
All right, I'm gonna give you the full rundown. And I'm going to start with saying, you can find all of our publications, all of our branding and everything on Facebook, Instagram. I do want to plug them because we have a great team that's putting out a lot of good information, a lot of entertainment, a lot of digital value. And so if you just look up those names, Black Engineer, BEYA, Women of Color, if you type that into any of the social media, check us out, follow us. Now let's go down the website. So follow CCG. Our main page is ccgmag.com. And there, basically, you can get to all of our pages. That's like the home base. For the conference, the upcoming, definitely need to register and learn more about the BEYA conference, which is coming up February 11th through 13th. It's coming up soon, and we definitely want to see you there. That is www.beya.org. Then we have the website, the publication websites that I mentioned earlier, which is U.S. Black Engineer, which is blackengineer.com. We have Hispanic Engineer Magazine, and that's hispanicengineer.com. And then we have the Women of Color publication site, which is womenofcolor.online.
That's great. And that's really important. So we know that the dates are February the 11th through the 13th, and it's all going to be digital. So they'll be able to get through once they register. They'll be able to have they'll get a registration confirmation with information on how to upload or whatever they need to do, right?
Yep. that's the technical, that's the back end. So, but yeah, definitely when you sign up, you'll definitely get information that will kind of lead you where you need to be.
Okay.
Yep. And Marsha, can I get one more shameless plug? And that's to check out, if you guys are podcast fans, check out our podcast, which is High Tech Sunday, which is an awesome series that I'm able to work with my amazing team of Brandon Newby and our co-host, which is Dr. Mark Vaughn and Lango Dean, who do a great job of interviewing guests who come on, technical leaders, STEM leaders who are able to kind of talk about their passions and what they do through a spirituality lens. And, we've had, people who can quote the scripture, without looking at it. And we want everybody, we want to meet them where they are on their spiritual journeys, because usually people who are that passionate about their work, because they're all high level people. I mean, coming up this week, we have astronaut Winston Scott, who's done 3 spacewalks. But people who are usually passionate usually have some type of spirituality connection or drive or motivation. And what we try to do on that show is humanize our guests, because they all have amazing resumes, bios. They've all are very established in their work. But what we try to do on that show is give you the story that you can't Google. And so we want to get to the human. We want to get to the source of why they do what they do. Why is their resume so long? Why have they been doing this and doing this, giving back and kind of sharing their gifts with the world? What makes them tick? And so High Tech Sunday is on anywhere you download your podcast. But check it out. It's a lot of inspirational people that we've had on there. A lot of information to share.
Can I ask one more question, Marsha?
Yeah, you're past time, but yes, go ahead.
Any wisdom on getting more Black youth involved in technology? Have you figured it out yet?
Exposure. I mean, technology is all around us. So here's one thing that I like. I was part of the technology awareness program. That's one of the first things I did when I got here. And what we try to do with the TAP program is expose students to STEM careers. They don't have to pick, but we just want to put them in an environment where they can see and learn about different things, and they can make a choice. Just because you never know what's going to be the thing that inspires somebody. And so we try to just put them and surround them with STEM. But the cool thing about that program is when you first get there, because we used to go to HBCUs and we used to have a 3-day camp, and it's in the summertime, and you can imagine that high school students do not want to be in a academic environment in the summertime for, I think it was about 5 hours or so. And so that first day, you got attitudes. You start the program, and by that third day, nobody wants to leave. And so we know that all you have to do is inspire. Just show them the path, show them the opportunities that's in front of them, and they'll gravitate to it. One of the cool things, like I said, I'm a huge kid. I told you I love superheroes. I love video games. And one of the coolest things that I love to bring up when I talk to young people about STEM topics is that the reason we have in-home video games, the PS5, Xbox, the reason we can play those games in-home is because of a Black man named Jerry Lawson. He's known as the godfather of video games. And nobody knows that. But how many young Black kids out there love playing? We're one of the biggest consumers. and we make up less than, I think, 3% or 4%. It's definitely under 5% of the developers. How many of those kids who, if they would have known that, you know, a black man's got it this way, you know, I can play it at home because of this man. If you knew that history, you know, you might be pushed into the gaming industry, or at least know that there's a pathway for you.
That's right. And it's critical. You know, too often people don't know what they don't know. So,
absolutely.
Right. They don't even know. But it's also really important for us to be able to tell all of these stories. And I highly recommend you and your families to get a subscription to these publications. And, you know, I had this conversation with Ray, and I was thinking about it the other day. People need to be able to see these publications with regularity, and they need to share it with the information with their families. And I know for a fact that you're not going to find this kind of information anywhere else, because this organization is boots on the ground with the people who are creating all of these new products. They're the inventors, they're the designers, they're the creators of these technologies. And I don't know where else you're going to find that. The rest of it's going to be through a press release versus through relationships. And sometimes in relationships, you get far more information than what you can get off of a piece of paper. So I highly recommend it. I highly recommend that everybody go and sign up for the HBCU homecoming event, the HBCU Village, and the K through 12 Village. And it's going to happen February the 11th through the 13th. And you've got to do this. And you can do it from the comfort of your own home.
Mm-hmm. And it's a lot more. It's a whole lot more. I mean, those are some of the highlights, the spotlights. But yeah, definitely come check us out. I mean, even if you're not at HBCU, if you just want to be in an environment of a trusted community, I mean, because that's ultimately what BEYA is. It's become a trusted community. It's just a good place where you can go and be around like-minded folks, and just you know, I guess, take it in, absorb the energy. It's just a phenomenal experience.
Ray, I just got to tell you, what I've enjoyed most is watching the use of technology. I've enjoyed watching Dr. Taybourne use technology in the conference.
Yes.
This broadcast, and over the 35 years, you say you're 31, so this is for you.
It's older than me, yeah.
So where it started with email, you know, this is 35 years ago. Were there websites? But anyway, just the evolution, and how we are where we are.
That's right.
I know we're wrapping up, but I did want to say, you know, sometimes when I go back and kind of look at like the early issues of the magazines, it blows my mind just kind of looking at, one, how much has changed, and then how much stayed the same. Like some of the topics that we're talking about today, they were still talking about, or they were talking about then, the digital divide. Like, you know, Tyrone's been one of the leaders in that. Like that's still an issue now, probably more so now since we've gone into this pandemic. But that was still topics that we had, you know, in 1989 when I was born. And so, or 1990, you know, that's still stuff. But then there's still technology. It's just a wonderful evolution.
Well, and you know, it's really interesting. The publication was USB Black Engineer, and then it became US Black Engineer and Information Technology.
Yeah.
Right. So he's been at the forefront bringing all of this together to make certain that it stays with the time. And during that digital divide, when the first report came out in 1994 by Larry Irving over at the Department of Commerce, NTIA, he wrote that original proposal or report that coined the phrase digital divide. And so out of that came Black Family Technology Awareness Week and all of the technology awareness programs. So Tyrone was right there and has always been there. So we're really, really proud of the Black Engineer of the Year Awards Conference and all of the products you guys have at CCG.
Who coined it? Who coined digital divide?
Larry Irving. He was working at Ron Brown was the Secretary of Commerce at that time. And Larry was the director of the National Telecommunications and Information Agency, NTIA. And at that time, Tyrone also created a committee, and Larry Irving was part of that. There were a lot of people nationally that were all part of that movement. But NTIA came in. Bill Clinton was the president at that time.
Marcia, you might want to say hello to Imara Sunny Strotz Lewis, one of your mentees. She's now a grown woman, and she's a big fan of yours. She remembers when you first started with Tech Houses.
Oh my goodness! Hi, where is she?
And she's also sending you a shout out. She said she'd love for her son Ali Lewis to talk to you about his career plans to transfer to Bowie for IT in Mara. So she'll be coming at you. Watch out.
Oh, wonderful. We're looking forward to that.
Her husband was the football player. Played for the Baltimore Ravens. Jamal Lewis.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Yes,
I know her very well. She and Sandy were friends.
So we're all good, Marcia, for today?
Yeah. Ray, do you have any parting words or anything you want to say? Give a website shout out again?
No, I guess my last push will just be follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook. You know, our digital team, like I said before, is amazing, and they're doing a lot of good stuff. We got a lot of good content out there. Check us out. Our YouTube page as well. Just look up Career Communications Group. It's some amazing stuff out there.
Mm-hmm. And that ccgmag.com, it can also take you. That's more the parent.
Yep. That'll get you everywhere that I talked about. So www.ccgmag.com, ccgmag.com.
Great. Ray, thank you so much. I know you are on deadline and running crazy, so we're a little bit over, but we appreciate all the information that you gave us.
And I appreciate you guys. This was a lot of fun this morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Good deal. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Have a beautiful day.
You guys as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So let's see. Mr. Bob, are you there?
I'm absolutely here.
Okay. So what's happening in the world? Are we still free? And by the way, we can't see you. We can't hear you, though.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay.
We saw you at first.
And let me make a correction for the statement I made earlier. I talked about them going back in yesterday. What happened was the police officer was actually shot on Wednesday, but he died yesterday.
A police officer was shot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he died last night.
One of the Capitol Police.
Yeah.
Inside the Capitol?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a total of 5 people who've died as a result of this whole incident at this point. Yes, 5 people are dead at this point.
Oh my. I thought it was just the one lady that climbed through the window that got popped.
No. There were 3 other people who they said had medical emergencies that apparently were not in a position where they could get attention where attention could get to them. And now this Capitol police officer was also shot.
Now a murder scene.
Depending on how murder is defined in the District of Columbia, but possibly yes.
Was this a coup d'etat still?
They may not frame it that way.
Was this still an act of sedition?
Yeah, it was definitely, in my opinion, an attempt at the government-sponsored coup. That's why, when sometimes when the pundits talk about this as though this was some kind of people's revolt, it was not. These people were just instrumentalities of a larger plan, and that in part. Now, not everybody was not everybody involved knew what the deal was, so to speak. But I believe anyway that a number, especially the Capitol Police, that allowed them entry. Now, not all of them were allowed entry, as Wendell said yesterday. Some broke in, but everybody didn't need to know. Only the leaders knew what was really going on, in my opinion. And the ultimate leader was, of course, the soon-to-be departed number 45. I refuse to refer to him as president.
Is 45 complicit with the murder?
Absolutely. You know, if this were Maryland, and assuming that was a felony underway, and I think that there were many felonies occurring yesterday. If a homicide occurs, if a death occurs during the course of the commission of a felony, you have a thing in Maryland. And Wendell could tell you this. I'm not a criminal lawyer, but they used to have a thing called a felony murder rule, and that means that if a homicide occurs in the course of commission of a felony, then that is a murder, and that charge extends to everybody who was participating in the underlying felony, even if they had nothing to do with the actual homicide. So yeah, so yes. If there, yes, I believe there was a felony underway. There were multiple felonies. I believe that people died, which means there were homicides. And I believe that all those who took part in the planning and orchestration of it were co-conspirators and subject to charge as murderers.
I do not want this called a riot.
It was an act of sedition.
But there are far too many people in the press that keep calling it a riot, and it wasn't a riot. And people need to understand the difference between a riot and a sedition. And we can't keep tolerating this, because when you start thinking riots, people automatically start thinking of Black people. These were white supremacists who literally tried to take over the United States government. And in the process of that, murdered people.
Channel CBS referred the night of the act of sedition, they called them mobsters. Now, I've watched a lot of these news items over the years, as have you. I have never heard Black people called mobsters, but these white seditionists were called mobsters. Is that a nuance in mainstream media?
That's a term that they use for the Italian mafia. They called them mobsters, and that a lot of that came out of the Chicago and all of the problems that they were having within all of those ethnicities out of Chicago and New York. So they were considered mobsters. They were selling illegal liquor and all of that stuff, and doing whatever, gambling. Those people, again, so that's another ethnicity that they're now referring to, without saying that these white supremacists tried to take over the government.
I thought they are traitors. Are they not traitors?
Yes.
Of course they're traitors, but this is an effort to try to distance them from Trump. Trump still has many followers inside and outside of government. Don't think his followers have ended with what happened yesterday. Everything about what happened yesterday is on a par with what happened right after the Civil War. These people were as much traitors as they were then, and by not taking action against them, the government itself was just as culpable as Andrew Johnson was when he pardoned all of the officers and the soldiers that fought for the so-called Confederacy. Jefferson Davis. No, that was Andrew Johnson that did the pardon, not Jackson. Johnson.
Mm-hmm. The whole thing is out of control as far as I'm concerned. And his little feigned press conference last night was so ridiculous, as he read off of the teleprompter barely. And there were still little veiled things that he was saying that, to me, they were like horse whispers, that they're little words that people can grasp, part of those little white supremacy people.
What's to stop this from happening again? Because what I gathered, this is just a smack on the wrist. Oh, Johnny got a little out of hand. Time out, Johnny. I don't see them taking this seriously.
They're not.
You all keep saying they. You all keep saying they as though there's separation between the people who broke in the building and the people who ordered the break-in. That's not. Right. They are they. Mm-hmm. The ones that you're relying upon or looking to do something are the ones who perpetuated the act.
Say it again.
Are you saying that the perpetrators won't discipline themselves?
Exactly.
No. They're
exactly. Yes, they are traitors, and they were the perpetrators. They're not. It's foolish to keep expecting them to regulate themselves, to punish themselves. It's not going to happen. If we see any punishment, it's not going to happen until after January 20th. Now, I know that some people have been charged. I know they've tried to cover up. I think they've charged about 60 of the low-lying people, right? According to what I've read. But those charges are not going to be prosecuted or resolved until after January 20th. So we'll have to see what Biden does to actually pursue that.
I was expecting to see some arrests on the spot the day of. Anybody around this building, lock them all up.
That should have happened, but you didn't have the leadership to make that call, and it didn't come from the mayor. It didn't come from any of the leadership within the Department of Defense, the National Guard. So nobody was given the order, because all of the orders primarily had to come out of Trump's office, and he wasn't given it either.
The commander-in-chief. The commander-in-chief. He's in charge of the armed forces.
Everybody.
And Mayor Bowser has no jurisdiction on federal property. So she had no authority to order anything.
Will we see Trump removed right now?
No, he's not going to be removed. And even if he did, that's not the end of it. The one true thing that he said to his folk was, this is just the beginning. That is the one truth. This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
But the question is, the beginning of what?
Of what? Right. And that was the end of his statement when he did his little thing on television.
Right.
Right. And so that says he already has a plan. He already knows what's going to be implemented. And so how do you then, as a nation with new leadership, what are the systems that need to be in place to make certain that this government is protected and the people who are running it?
Kevin Kane, is this a reality check for you? You're a business owner, you're a mom, you live 5 minutes from the Capitol. Is this a reality check for you?
I would say yes and no. No, in the sense that is not surprising that we've come to this point. I mean, we've seen the spiraling down the rabbit hole, for decades. But I would say yes, in the sense that it is so close to home, in that the reality is upon us now. And that they have been so emboldened and they feel so bold that who knows what the next step is going to be. And the fact that they already have a next step in place just causes me personally to feel, okay, well, what do I need to do in order to protect myself?
Right. And that's what we all better be thinking about, particularly those people that are within a 40-mile radius of that nation. And, and I think there's also some issues that we need to be thinking about of where did all these people come from and how did they just show up? I mean, thousands of people
they didn't show up.
You know what I'm saying?
Slowly trickling in. And Donnie, from your neighborhood, you've been seeing people popping up, strange faces, new influences coming in, through Baltimore, through DC, through gentrification, through, the different challenges that we've been having, even during the Black Lives Matters riots, as they called them, or those peaceful demonstrations. There were a lot of folks that were insightful during those demonstrations, creating news headlines that would negate the Black Lives Matters movement.
So,
and those individuals were not a part of the Black Lives Matters movement. They were, inciting against Black Lives Matters.
Mr. Bob, she makes a great point. Out in Portland, Oregon, some could call it the headquarters for Antifa, for the anarchists. We saw in Portland where they took over a police station.
And you say that word. Anarchy is so much greater than racism.
Right.
It really is, because those are the racists who have absolutely no respect for government or border.
Or life.
Boundaries. They have no respect for boundaries at all.
Well, I'm a country boy, and I always believe that if you're going to get rid of weeds, you got to pull them up by the roots. You just can't cut the top of them off. And so that raises the question for me: why did 12% of the black males that vote for Trump? Why did 12% of the black males? I mean, make no question about it. Black women determined the outcome of this election. Black women gave this election to Biden and Kamala. Black women elected, but 12% of black men voted for Trump. Why is that?
Maybe it came up in our show yesterday with Morocco from Georgia that maybe felt ostracized. Maybe no one was paying the black men in rural areas any attention, where Trump and his posse were paying attention to rural areas. But some kind of way they didn't feel connected to the masses. Maybe these are, I don't know.
Well, Donald Trump is back on Twitter. And 1 hour ago, he said the 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America first,
he's not a patriot,
and make America great again, will have a giant voice, all caps, long into the future. They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form.
Send his ass to jail.
Yeah, that is the only thing that will ultimately determine, in my opinion, that you get not just him, but a whole bunch of them. Now, of course, it also depends on who he's not finished pardoning people yet. By the way,
he's not finished doing anything yet. He's warming up.
He's still got a pocket full of pardons that he's about to issue.
But that's exactly the reason why the 25th Amendment needs to be implemented. I mean, what is the holdup on actually doing that?
Because that can only be done by his own cabinet. That can only the 25th Amendment can only be invoked by the people who he appointed in their positions, or by Pence, who became vice president along with him on the ticket.
So
we keep acting like we're surprised that foxes eat chickens, but that's what they do. We keep acting surprised that the frozen snake, when it thawed out, bit us, but that's what snakes do. I mean, this cabinet, Trump's cabinet, is not going to impeach Trump. It's just that simple.
Right. And
so we all go down the tube because they don't have the testicular fortitude to do the right thing. We become an international laughing stock.
Yeah. Well, Donnie, I don't concede that the country belongs to them. That's number one. And we got to be very careful about that, in my opinion. One of my friends reminded me of that we got to tell our children that this is our country too.
No. Yeah. This is our country first.
Yeah. So every time we say they, we got to think about it in the context of we. We got to stop. The question is, what are we going to do? Not they, because they suggest that there's a group over there that runs everything, that we have no control. We are they. We got to.
So what is the narrative that we're going to project?
Hold up. Those black veterans, those generals, those admirals that you have talked to, are they going to sit by and allow this clown to turn our country further into a circus?
Well, there's a link. The Lincoln Project is full of former and active duty military personnel, and there are people that are working on what the next steps are. That's all I can say. That's all I know. But whatever it is, the reality is that we cannot continue along these veins, because in the document that I just read to you, those are veiled threats, again, continuing about trying to overtake this government.
I didn't know that there were so many cowards in our country. I am not used to being bullied. I was raised on North Avenue. There's an answer for a bully. It's called an alley apple. I know with all of the training, military training, education, that these Americans were such cowards. I'm not sure I would go to war with such cowards by my side.
Maybe they aren't cowards, Donnie. Maybe they're like kindred spirits. I mean, you gotta this again. Trump was not the problem. Trump was the poster child for a movement, for a group of folks who still believe very much in white supremacy. Now, and when you remove Trump, you've not removed all the white supremacists. And as I've said often, that you don't have to be white to be a white supremacist. There are, we can't forget, if you're going to get rid of the weeds, you got to pull them up by the roots. You can't cut the top off. 12%.
Right.
That's exactly why we have to pay attention to the narrative in our community and what we're sharing with our kids and with our families. And as we go out into our neighborhoods, as we're talking more about what happens with this, what is the narrative for us? You know, and talking about how we came up from slavery is not all it. We need to talk about the advancements that we've made, how we were able to actually found this country, because the work that we've done as a community, as Black Americans, is what this country continues to thrive on. And so recognizing those who have been inventors, those who have made, strides in different areas, such as we talked about earlier with technology, recognizing those historians, recognizing those historical figures who really made a difference in helping us to understand you're not the first one to come into doing something great as a community, but this is not just for the Black community, it is for our community. Just like you said, Robert, about being able to look at what are we doing? How are we feeling about what's going on nowadays? We have to take this on for ourselves, because honestly, we've come past the point of the civil rights movement. We're moving into the more financial awareness and recognizing the power that we have as a community, but we really have to understand our fundamental contribution to the establishment of this country, the establishment of the way that things work and the way that things run, and how we continue to contribute to that today. So what we say to our kids, what we say to our colleagues, that is what we're going to move ourselves into the future with, that kind of thinking. And so we have to have that forward thinking. Not just holding on to where we've come from in the past, but understanding that we were coming up from slavery in the past for a long time before it's ever being acknowledged. And even now, a lot of those historical figures are unknown. They're not as widely spread. We can't speak their names as well as we can speak about those white historical figures.
And there's a reason for that. The more things change, the more they stay the same. What you just said, everything you just said, Kavette, is absolutely true. But it reminds me of a discussion that I had back during the days when we were talking about things like Black Pride back in the 70s. It reminds me of the same discussions that we were talking about back during the era of the Black Panther, when the Black Panther movement started. It reminds me of the discussion we had years ago when a person once named Stokely Carmichael, that he later became Imamu Baraka or whatever it was, when he was charged with inciting a riot in Cambridge, Maryland, 30 miles from where I was born. Because there's a fundamental issue that Randall Robinson's talked about in his book, The Debt, What America Owes Black People, that we've not come to grips with. This country can't be set right until it acknowledges, and we force it to acknowledge and deal with the debt. Nothing else is going to change. This issue can't be settled. It's not going to go away. There's no statute of limitations on it. What was stolen is stolen until it's returned to its rightful owner. Our labor was stolen. And yes, there were those among us that were complicit, just like there were those among the Jews that were complicit in Germany. Do you think that the Jews in Germany, once they knew what Hitler had signs on their doors saying Jews live here? No, somebody told them what doors to knock on, okay? And guess who knew where they were? That was other Jews. So the fact that we may have been complicit in the slave trade, the fact that we may have owned slaves, none of that matters. There was a theft. There has been a theft. That of intellectual property, of labor, of invention, of ideas. Then somebody's got to pay for that. We have to pay for that.
In my lifetime.
It may not. But I got nothing better to do in my days than to fight for.
A lot of people thought we wouldn't see a Black president in your lifetime either, but it happened.
Yeah. So I'm not looking for. Well, all I want them to put on my tombstone when my grandchildren stay there, that I want them to say, "Pop fought to the day he died." If they can say that, then that's good with me. I'm all right with that.
Tell us how you really feel.
Well, and it's about taking action. I mean, I'm thinking about, okay,
I understand it. The whole everything. We're probably around the same age, Bob. So, in looking at what we've gone through to where we are, how do we now continue to move forward and stay intact and to build and to focus inward? You talk about the Black Panthers and all that whole period. I mean, we've got Paul Coates right here, who's a member, and Eddie, who just got out of prison not too long ago, right here in Baltimore. And all of that all that they were doing was looking inward and developing our communities. It was about how to empower us, how to educate us, how to feed us, how to house us, how we need to do what we need to do as a people together. Now, here we are now, we don't do anything for each other. It's war. You have to sit down and try to beg people to do something to help empower the people that we have right here. How do we change a paradigm where Black people start spending more time, more money, more energy in our own community? There was something on Clubhouse last night, and people were talking about, and it was deep. They said, why do Black people have notes on being Black owned that you put on your business, Black owned hair salon or Black owned this, and the white people don't say white owned? There were literally thousands of people on that thread arguing, and it was amazing. 2:00 in the morning, they're doing all this. And some people just would not accept, Black people who were talking would not accept that Black people wanted to put Black owned business on their material.
Or I didn't coin this phrase, but I will repeat it. Forgive them, for they know not what they do.
See what I'm saying?
I didn't. It's not a phrase, but it's applicable here. Everybody's not gonna make it, Marsha. Everybody ain't gonna cross over. Some folk will never even get to see the river. Okay, I'm not with the fact that there are those among us who can't see the light and won't see the light today. That's okay. They're gonna be left. They're gonna be like the guy who told Harriet Tubman, "I want to turn back," and she pulled out her gun and said, "You got two choices: either come with us or die here."
Right.
That's the choices. Come with us or die here. We have to identify who the ones among us sometimes that want to turn back or that refuse to move ahead. But this is not the forum for it, because you don't plan in front of a camera.
But
you can't.
One of the main things I think is that in my generation, in what I've seen, because there's been a lot of more emphasis on inclusion. So talking about, bringing the world together and bonding cultures and, being more integrated with, everyone, the Hispanic community, the Chinese or the Asian community, the African-American community and so forth, and looking at how we can all blend in. But what we have missed over, what we have escaped is really identifying a true grasping of our own culture first. You cannot mess with other people and bring in your culture if you don't even understand it. And so that's where the divide or the gap, I believe, exists. It's in educating, it's in understanding, and it's in fully embracing the African-American culture for being our own, not what white people dictate it to be, not what Hispanic people dictate it to be, not what Asian people dictate it to be, because a lot of people have taken pieces of our culture and created what they call their own, hip hop, so to speak. But it's like when we really understand what our culture is, then we can hold on to it. But the one thing that has been consistent in this country is making sure that we're not able to identify with our culture.
And that you are absolutely right.
Because our language was gone. We don't have, the food that we call a part of our culture is the food that we were given during slavery times. The songs that are a part of our culture are the songs that were given to us, during slavery time. So how can we, really hold on to shifting the narrative and looking at the successful things in our culture when we keep holding on to those things that were given to us.
Education, because most of our kids never heard of Timbuktu. They didn't know that Africans had running water and flushing toilets when Europeans were still peeing out the back window. They don't know that. But why? Because if you want to control the people, you take away their culture. You take away their history. You take away their ability to connect with those that came before. You make them homeless. And then you tell them that everything they get from that point forward is by a gift from us. That's what happened. That is why 12% of the black men voted for Trump. That is why we still today can't appreciate the deleterious effect of Brown v. Board of Education. That's why when we use words like inclusion and diversity and tolerance, it always starts with the premise that they have that which is value, and they got to figure out a way, or we got to figure out a way to have them give us part of what is theirs. As long as our conversations start with the premise, if you get up in the morning and your impression of the world is that white folk run it and that's the way it's supposed to be, you can't be free. You can't be free. Ever.
As long as you believe you're run by somebody else. And that's
exactly
because we have to understand fundamentally that is the mentality of someone who has been abused. When you're in an abusive or narcissistic situation, and this person is constantly infiltrating your minds, your mindset, your thoughts, your ability to reason, because they cause you to question everything that you're coming up with, that makes sense. And they're like, oh, no, that doesn't make sense. Or you say something happened and they say something contradictory. When you've been in that kind of situation, eventually you begin to believe what your abuser is telling you. You begin to believe what they're saying is the truth. And that is where we are at this point in time. We are a traumatized culture. We are a traumatized nation of people, African Americans. And if
some of us are.
Is that why we get out of it, then we're going to be stuck.
Is that why we killing each other?
Some of us are. Some of us are. But let's stop focusing on. First of all, let's not talk. We got to stop talking like everybody's in that same bubble. Because they really aren't. But because talking like everybody's in the same bubble continues the mentality of hopelessness. A hopeless people is a helpless people. If you don't have no hope, you can't be helped. But as I say again, I don't have time. I don't have time to try to bring everybody. I'm only working with those who are willing to believe. Right? If you're not willing to believe, that's fine. I don't want to shoot. I don't want to put you in front of a firing squad and kill you. I don't want to. But I don't have. I can't spend my days with you. I don't have that much time. I'm not angry. I'm just urgent. So let's talk about those among us who do understand. Let's talk about those among us. Huh?
Understand what? What do you want them to understand?
I want them to understand our true history. I want them to understand our true contribution. I want them to understand that we are a people of value, not because of what white folk gave us, but because we are created by the one and only God. That's what I want them to understand.
Okay.
And to recognize the things that were actually belonged to us before they were stolen and rebadged.
Amen.
The cars that you see coming off the line, maybe coming from GMC, and they rebadge it for Chevy, or they rebadge it for Buick, or they rebadge it for whoever they're going to rebadge it for. It still came off of that line from the original maker.
Exactly.
And so many things that are not acknowledged as having come from our African American history, our African history, the things that we brought with us to this country and then were able to use in order to found this country, that now we're looking at these things and they say, oh, so-and-so made it, Thomas Edison and, this one and that one, and recognizing the black faces and the black names who were the ones who actually contributed to those inventions. And
you make a great point. Marsha, what about our celebrities? Mr. DeShield?
Are you okay?
Yeah. I'm on my way to the next appointment. I didn't realize y'all can't be watching me put my shoes on. What are you doing? Go ahead. I'm great. I'm moving and talking. So what you see, forget. Nobody comes inside the sanctum. Go ahead.
Well, should we be hearing, Marcia?
I'm sorry.
We have a lot of celebrities with millions of followers. What should our Black celebrities with millions of followers, as many followers as Trump on Twitter, what should they be saying?
I think the question is, what should we be saying to them? And that's a conversation. That's a family around the table talk. Again, that's not something that I would broadcast. But yes, there are those among us who've acquired things. Unfortunately, many in the same way that white folk acquired them. We got to deal with there's a problem when our people will give more money to the Baltimore Museum of Art than they will to the Reginald Lewis Museum. There's a problem when our people with money would talk to us, would give us a handout instead of a hand up. Yeah. So yeah,
doesn't that say that there are some issues that are internal issues with them, that about how they see themselves or what they think they should be in order to get to where they want to go, and and it's far more important to be at a certain capacity of donating to something that has been adopted by the larger community, so that makes you relevant.
No, so it makes you accepted by that quote larger community.
You still have to be relevant, because if you're irrelevant, you're not going to be accepted. So you have to be relevant, and you have to be relevant about the things that are important to them. And so if you don't see yourself as being relevant wherever you are and with whomever you're with, then you're going to continue to get the same thing over and over again. And that's a psychological, emotional, and mental issue that those people have to deal with.
I'll share my last bit of piece on this. When I think of 2021 and COVID, 2020 and all that we went through with COVID, the pandemic, the poor distribution of PPE, the poor distribution of funds, the Black businesses and Black communities. I understand the state of Oregon had to give back money, or there's some controversy over the PPE money or PPP money going to Black people. And then you look at what happened 2 days ago. This country, we haven't moved far at all. We thought that the Civil War was a step forward in the sense of what came about afterwards, or in the process, the ending of slavery. But it's as if we haven't moved far at all.
You're not, because of what Kivette said. I hope I pronounced her name correctly. And Randall Robinson before her, and many before that. And certainly what I've said, there's a debt. There's been a theft. There's a crime. There's a crime that was committed, and it's ongoing, and it's continuing. Until the perpetrators are brought to justice, none of that's going to change, Donnie. You're going to have ebb and flow and all of that. Of course, nothing is going to be. Today will never be the same as yesterday, no matter what we do. Why? Partly because it's a different day. But the fact that may have been incremental changes or periodic changes or things that make us feel good doesn't change the fact that there's been a theft, and it's ongoing. And until the perpetrators are brought to justice, there's not going to be any peace.
Okay.
That'll be the final word. My name's Donnie Glover. You've been watching the BmoreNews Morning Show. We'll be back Monday. The show runs every Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Special thank you to Mr. Bob DeShields and the Robert DeShield Law Firm. Special thank you also to Edible Arrangements, located in Govans and in Randallstown, as well as Terra Cafe and Next Phase Cafe at 112 East Lexington Street. Kivette Minor Kane, Marcia Jews, thank you for setting off the weekend. We just hope to survive until Monday.
Yep. Thank you.
Keep watching.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
For the news.
Good morning, Baltimore.
Good morning, Baltimore.
Good morning, Baltimore.